So hello everyone. Welcome to another Gene Keys live experience. Lovely to be here, sitting up in my studio in a windy, wet day in Devon. And just enjoying some space with you all. So maybe we start with a little attunement just to kind of gather us all and bring us into our center together. So just closing your eyes and breathing in through your nose, and gently out through your mouth. So with a little bit of a sigh. No particular correct way of doing this, just in through the nose, out through the mouth. And just enjoying that breath for a few moments. Allowing that breath just to bring you down in your body, into your belly, into your solar plexus. And we're always looking for that place of centeredness. So inside our body, there's a geometry that is the exact center of our being. It's somewhere deep behind our navel. And all the lines of energy, subtle energy, and the dimensions that make up our full being all emanate from this point of singularity. We sometimes refer to it as the one point. We rest our awareness there in the one point. You can find it with your intuition. Your intuition always knows exactly where it is and will settle very readily into that point. And with deep relief, usually. So see if you can feel that sense of the relief that your body feels when you settle right into the center of your being. We spend a great deal of time in the periphery, outside, with our minds, with our bodies, in the world. And yet deep inside each one of us is this locus point, this center, the core of the wheel of our life, and the wheel of all existence. And when we start to play with this knowledge, this wisdom of the gene keys and astrology and human design and these things, we're coming into the center of the wheel. And we are sometimes looking at patterns that are imprinted in the wheel at the time we were born, at the time we were conceived, other important moments in our lives are moments of imprinting. And all these moments are connected. Like pearls on a string. And they connect us forwards in time and backwards in time. And they bring us into a sense of continuity of our consciousness. And at some point in this universe, this space-time continuum, our existence as a soul or as this being began at this same point of singularity. And then it rippled out and it started its journey through many dimensions and fields. And a great story is unfolding for each of us as individuals and as crystals of consciousness within this wheel. And everything, every living cell has one of these centers. Even the inanimate has its center of geometry. Every cell, every atom, every tiny fractal of form has this same center at its core. And when we come into this center, we come into the point of rest, of the divine pause. We press the divine pause button. And we realize that all life breathes from here, from this belly of the world. And what a magical thing it is. So I'm very delighted to be sitting here having some tea, or at least water, with you all, and to look at some of the questions that arise from this place at the core. Some of the questions that have come up already that I've seen, and well done those of you who got here early because I saw your questions first. There's some questions, really good questions about the 55th gene key and the 59th gene key, which I mentioned in Clubhouse when I was on Clubhouse last night. And also, it's been mentioned a lot. And someone also asked about it. Several questions have asked about it. And it's a huge subject. And those of you who are new to the gene keys, hopefully Anton will drop a link in the chat box where you can link straight. If you don't have the Gene Keys book, you can link on our website. There is a page where you can read the 55th gene key. And it's there, and there's some information about it. And I think there might be an audio. I can't quite remember. There's some resources, free resources, but there's also that key for you to read. Because it was such an important one, it felt like it needed to stand alone so that everyone could read it. And it is the key that's about freedom, and its shadow is victimhood. And so it tells us about all the keys. When you look at one of these gene keys, you're looking at them all. It tells you something about all of them. They're all of a fractal knowledge. So when you take the 55 and you go, well, its shadow is victimhood, then you know that all shadows are about being a victim in different ways, and different layers of that things that catch us out, that we get, we lose our center, and we get caught in the peripheries and the spokes of the wheel. And then we have to, the great learning of that is to come back to the center. And that's the purpose of our suffering and the purpose of these shadows, so that they remind us to come back to the center and rest there. And every gene key in the spectrum of all these keys, there's 64 of them, has a pair, has a partner. They're called programming partners. And the 55th gene key is paired with the 59. So those two have a story together. Whenever you look at the partners, it's very profound. There's always a story that kind of interlocks them. And often one side of the story is told by one key and the other side by the other. So the 55th gene key has freedom, and the 59th gene key is about transparency and intimacy. And its shadow is dishonesty. And so it's saying a lot about our relationships and relational field. And that tells us a lot about the 55 and tells us a lot about how we find freedom, and how we're designed to find freedom through our relationships, through relating, and because they give us that mirror, that old chestnut about every relationship as a mirror, and it's true. It's a mirror of what is going on inside you, and relationships allow us to see that, and dishonesty allows us to see that. Places where we're dishonest in our relationships, in ourself. And I'll say that, dishonesty is toxic. It's deeply toxic to our whole system. And so you might want to consider that, like any time you tell something that isn't true, you're like, it's like you're ingesting a toxin in your body, in your being. And every time you conceal something, because, whatever the reason is, it's also can become cancerous inside us. And so many people around the world, have relationships like that, where they keep secrets from each other. And we've all done it. I did it. My practice now through my relationships is to be as absolutely crystal clear and honest with myself and with everyone as much as I can. And that's what opens the pathway towards freedom and allows us to kind of move through the shadow experiences. And the importance of the 55th gene key and why it's unique, and it was a surprise to me and when I wrote the book, is that it's kind of a catalyst or a trigger. And when you look at all the spectrum of consciousness and the keynotes, there was no kind of gift keynote, because so there's only two keynotes: the victimization and the freedom. And it was because, in a way, the siddhi had come down into the gift, and so it's a place where a big awakening is occurring. So it's where an involving force is coming down into the form of humanity, and then transforming us and transforming it. And it relates to the solar plexus center. It relates to our belly and our gut. And so there's a profound awakening process at work deep within the structure of humanity and deep within the DNA of humanity. And the 55th gene key, as I wrote it, it contains a prophecy. It's like quite wild. When you read it, if you haven't read it, you'll see it has this very, very prophetic kind of flavor. It's quite esoteric. It goes off into all kinds of things about what's coming in the future, and this transformation and the siddhis and how they're going to come into the world and through humans, and we're going to awaken these higher aspects of our nature. And this is all a process, and we're just at the cusp of that time now. And Ra Uru Hu, who's the founder of Human Design, and an early mentor for me, he spoke very clearly about this, although he had his own style of understanding it, which is different from mine. And he spoke really clear about this genetic mutation that would move through our species and change us from the inside out. And it always reminds me of the saying by Christ, where he said, when I return, I shall come like a thief in the night. And it's going to, so the awakening is coming from inside like a thief in the night. So we'll hardly even know it. We'll hardly even notice it, because it's going to come through our DNA as a mutation, and it'll spread. And it's already beginning to spread. It's seeded in humanity, and it will come out progressively more in children that come into the world. And then it will, at a certain point, it will be in its full form as a full mutation. I don't understand the genetics of it. And I don't think anyone will until we kind of see it, and then see it at work. And that might be a whole thing in itself, just to kind of recognize it. But the point is, it's in the field, and so we're changing. And the 55th gene key gives rise to this story of the great change. I call it the great change. And you'll find a lot of stuff on my website about the great change. There's a wonderful meditation with music that I did about the great change that's very powerful. And so it's woven into the gene key story and into our message, this process. And the very kind of symbol that you see on the gene keys books and things is the dragonfly. And the story of the dragonfly I've told many times. I'll tell it again very quickly, because I want to get to some other questions. That the dragonfly lives underwater as a nymph, for 2 or 3 years as a predator that lives underwater. And then one day some sleeping gene fires inside it, and it starts to crawl out of the water up a stalk of grass or a reed, and it enters into the light, into the air for the first time ever. It's never left the water. And it sits on a stalk of grass, and then the sun starts to work on it and starts to transform it. And the water that's inside it, because it's a being of water, through a system of hydraulics, is actually the pressure system that opens up, that cracks open its back and pushes open its wings and its thorax, and it uncurls. And then suddenly, from being an underwater creature, it is a creature of the air, and a creature of resplendent, multicolored rainbow, nature. So it's a wonderful metaphor. But the key in there is the hydraulics. It's like the element of the old form is the pressure system that forces open the new form. And that's the emotional system. That's the solar plexus. It's our emotions. And it's us riding on a new kind of mutation through our emotional system, through our solar plexus, that will allow us to, in the 55th gene key, it's called the stilling of the wave, because we all have these emotional waves, and they govern our day. And we have different waves. Some people have very spiky waves, so their emotions go up very quickly and down very quickly and up. Some people have undulating waves that are more gentle. Some people have waves that go up and stay up for a long time and go along and then come down and crash. And there's all manner of waves. And some people are more staccato. Some people, it's very easy to get stuck in a wave, so the wave sometimes gets stuck because of something in the biology, an aberration or something. And so we get stuck down at the bottom, or we get stuck high at the top, and there's all these polarizations. And, we see this in the world of the emotional waves of people. And we, if you live with someone a long time, you really get to know their emotional waves. So I know very well the wave of my wife and the wave of my children, and they're all different. And I know my own waves. And sometimes the waves crash against each other. Sometimes, a lot of things happen. So the point is that the stilling of the wave is when our consciousness rises up and starts to surf, or just on the crest of the wave. It starts to transcend, but also include the emotional wave. So we still get to enjoy the waves as they go up and down, and the, pleasure to pain, suffering to, happiness and joy and sadness and all of that. But our consciousness, our awareness is cresting on the top. So in a way, it starts to kind of vaporize. It starts like the dragonfly, it starts to move into another element. So its awareness is up here, but it's still, connected to its old life at the same time. So we don't lose our humanity, but we gain something amazing. We gain this sense of transcendent perspective. And this is a mutation that's coming, that's built in to the new human, the future human. So eventually we will come out like that. And you could say also these are our future bodies, because we are on, like I said at the beginning, we're on a kind of pulsing journey through incarnation, that takes us in and out. And if you might enjoy my talks with Chris Beisch, which are on YouTube channel here, about reincarnation and the moving in and out of the form, and all the kind of, we had a wonderful journey, Chris and I, amazing man who has a very, very profound understanding of these things. But anyway, it's called, they're called Contemplating Reincarnation. So you might enjoy those. So that's a little kind of beginning about the 55 and the 59. And so it's through our relationships and through us learning deeper levels of intimacy and using relationships that we are actually doing this process. And many of us have been recently on this Venus sequence retreat, and this is the deepest part, in a way, of the Gene Keys teachings. It's called the Venus sequence, and it's part of the Golden Path program on my site. It's a self-study program that you can go very deep into the way in which your emotional body is triggered according to the patterns of trauma that you inherited through your childhood cycles. And so the Venus sequence takes you on a really quite intense journey, going backwards layer by layer into those patterns, in order that we can open them up, accept them, embrace them, move through them, transcend them, and then we begin to kind of do, and that's the work. That's this work of transcending the emotional wave. So we're all doing it, we're all learning that, because every person that does that in their own personal life is doing it also for the collective. And so quite an amazing journey. So that's a little thing about the 55 and the 59. Yeah, there's a question here from Lisbeth Lionheart, great name, about Pluto entering into the 60th gene key. And those are great questions. Like, as you know, from having the wheel, this wheel of life, with the 64 keys around it, we can begin to see and track patterns, which is what happens in human design. It's what happens in gene keys and human design. We can look at these movements of keys in the wheel and see effects that are kind of being triggered in the world by these big patterns. And it's not, in a way, what we're doing by tracking planets, is we're looking at geometries. That's really the thing. It's about geometries. We're looking at different planes of geometry in the space-time continuum, and that's what these planets represent. It's the planes that they cut through in these different fields. And people that have explored, the geometry of our solar system in depth have really noted some incredible patterns in how the planets actually operate together as these spheres that are circling and turning on these different elliptical orbits and cycles. And it's really interesting to kind of understand some of those geometries and to see, how they are, they're kind of part of the choreography of what's going on here in our smaller circle, the globe itself. So bigger circles, smaller circles, and then the circle inside us, and then every single cell is imprinted also by wider and wider and wider patterns within the cosmos. So it's everything is moving in circles, spirals, and arcs, everything in the cosmos, from galaxies to, the whole thing itself. So when we're looking at like a shift of one planetary orbit like Pluto, which is one of the furthest out ones that we can that we could measure, that we use it with gene keys especially, and from human design as well. we get to see big cycles because Pluto, it's moving kind of, it appears to be moving very slowly around the sun because it's got a much greater arc. So when we're looking at its orbit and we see it, in two dimensions, it takes about 3 years to move through one gene key. So that's a 3-year imprinting cycle. So if you were to look at every child born in those 3 years, they would all have that gene key in their profile somewhere, activated by Pluto. Now, we don't use Pluto currently in the current profile, so it's another whole question. But Pluto, what it does show us is a big planetary theme, big planetary themes. And when it shifts, then the theme itself is beginning to shift. And so Pluto moving into a new key or a new hexagram or a new area in the heavens is a big deal. And Gene Key 60 is a big deal because it's a very unusual, profound key, and its city is called Justice. So that's going to tell you something already about it, justice. And justice is there's human justice, there's our understanding of justice, and then there's divine justice, which is a completely, it's at a level that we can't properly fathom, because unless you could see the workings of the whole, you wouldn't really understand justice in its deepest capacity. But woven into the cosmos through its patterning is a perfection and a balancing that is, the ancients called it karma, there've been many names for it. And it's this balancing principle, so even though when we look at our world, our human world, and it doesn't seem fair all the time, there's a deeper story at work that's transcendent, that goes beyond just this life. But unless we can see beyond just this life, then we wouldn't understand that wider justice. And really, the beauty of that cosmic justice is that there's a perfection to it, and there's an opportunity in every single piece of suffering that comes to every single human. And there are reasons for things that we can't understand and we can't see, because the whole thing is this massive choreography. So even things that seem completely pointless, like a beautiful child who you fall in love with and then dies, or something terrible like that, the great suffering that happens here, behind the scenes, there are reasons that are hidden for everything. And sometimes things happen and we don't understand it until later, and perhaps not even in this life. So the 60 brings a kind of potential vision of something deeper at work behind the scenes. And it also brings a change to the structures on our planet. So think about this, like, it's not going to be that, it hasn't been there for a long time. I think it's like 256 years or something, Pluto. So it hasn't been in that gene key for a long time. So every time it goes there, structures change. Big structural shifts take place at every level within society, at levels that we can't even fathom sometimes. So we're entering a period where structures will begin to dismantle even more, in order that something new can appear in their place. So I don't say that to alarm anyone, but I think we already can see it, the beginnings of that occurring anyway. But it's something just to kind of bear in mind. It's a very powerful cycle we're entering into. It's going to be going on for at least the next 3 years or so, and probably longer, as this energy begins to shift in our world. So really, an amazing period of life we're in, and we're moving up to this period, which links to the 55th gene key again, because the precession of the equinoxes, which is a very large, massive cycle, is also shifting into the 55th gene key in 2027. So up until now, to the year 2027, there's a kind of falling apart and dismantling, and a kind of massive change potentially in order for this kind of crystallization point to be reached. And I'm not saying that anything particularly magical or special or anything is going to happen in the year 2027. It often doesn't work like that. It's often just, these are the structures beneath, and it may do. But the point is that that's likely the time that this mutation that I've been talking about begins to creep into the world, in earnest, and it begins to spread slowly from that point in a very powerful way. So we're in a kind of amazing few years. Goodness, I wasn't expecting to go into all this. We could do some lighter stuff now. Some chance. Ruben, you've kind of asked, I'm way back on the early questions, and then I'll skip forward and have a look. But Ruben, you asked a question about being triggered. I can't say why you get triggered, but I can say that we all get triggered, and in different ways. We get triggered because of things that happened to us when we were very young, because there are memories and traumas that are imprinted in us very deeply, that happened very young. In fact, they even happened in the womb. And this is the teaching of the Venus sequence. When you really go into it, you get to understand, wow, these triggers are so deep inside us. And when we really understand them and we can create some space around them, they actually can reveal gifts. We can actually realize, wow, that trigger inside me is some kind of a contraction that takes place because of an event or a feeling. And it might have even been when you were in the womb and your mother had the contraction. No, I don't mean a literal, I mean like something came at her, or she heard something, or she was shouted at, or she was very scared, or something, in a moment. And in that specific moment of imprinting, the child, the uterus, the child in the fetus was imprinted with that contraction. And then that contraction was woven into the very structure of that development in the fetus. And there's actually a lot of evidence now coming more and more for these kind of things. People are kind of discovering that the things that happen in the womb have a very profound impact later in our lives. And then they return through the 7-year cycles of our childhood, particularly in the first 7 years. And so these are very deep things. And you mentioned, Ruben, that it's in your chest area. And you also mentioned, thank you very much, that you're a 4th line core wound, your vocation. The vocation is also known as your core wound in the Venus sequence. And there's only 6 possibilities of lines. There's 6 lines for every hexagram, or every gene key has one of 6 lines. If you get your profile, your gene keys profile, you'll see that. You can go, if you're new here, you can go to genekeys.com right now, get your free profile, have a look, and you'll see it. You'll see it has these numbers for gene keys with a dot, and then it has line 1. It'll say number 1 to 6, and those are the line numbers. And the line numbers give a really fascinating story as you get to understand the gene keys. They really they become very interesting and very profound ways of understanding how we're coded and how we are, how we behave, particularly with our wounding. And with the trauma. So a line 4 core wound, as you say quite rightly, is about abandonment, the fear of abandonment, or the fear of rejection. So every time you feel that contraction around your chest, it's some trigger of, I'm being rejected. It's the fear that you're about to be rejected, or that you're going, because something happened that made you feel that as a very defenseless child, and it's still sitting there, that memory in the cells. And the closer we get to these things, this is why I teach the art of contemplation, because contemplation is a very gentle way of approaching our trauma, these difficulties, these triggers in our life, because it creates space. So we don't have to kind of rush in and understand it. We don't have to rush in and heal it. The first stage is we're just going to allow it. The first stage of contemplation is allowing a feeling just to be what it is. And so allowing the trigger to happen. and watching it. And then perhaps as that goes deeper, the next time it happens, perhaps there's a little bit more awareness around it. And each time it happens, there's a little bit more awareness. And you realize, wow, things just come out of my mouth, or this defense is just physical. It's instant. It just goes across here. It's like, wow, like my whole cellular structure shuts off. How is that possible? From me feeling happy, I suddenly feel, because your nervous system has also, had a strong, and your brain is all connected. The biology is all like closing off in a contraction, and that's why when we feel those triggers, it's really instantaneous. It's very, very physical. And our breath gets shallower, and we move out into that periphery. We become a victim of the trauma itself. And the way of kind of opening that up is through giving space, allowing it, just watching it, allow it each time. And each time as you allow it a bit more, you will realize that it begins to soften. And perhaps also if you're having to react through like sudden words or angry words or whatever, then that begins to dissipate over time as well, as you see, wow. And the gene keys can really help us understand these things, because you really go into like, wow, this is like, the fourth line wounding is universal. We all have a fear of rejection in some way or another. We all have the different wounding patterns in us in different ways, but we have certain ones that are kind of highlighted, that take us to the deepest places of potential awakening. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of this knowledge, this wisdom, that's its purpose. Gene keys is to help us transform these shadows into their gifts, and then even into their highest components, their cities. So you might want to, so that's the journey. And, it begins with us kind of understanding that's the purpose of these things. So be gentle with yourself, Ruben, and, watch it happening, go on allowing it until it starts to become acceptance. Allow, accept, embrace. Those are the three stages. It can take a long time to dismantle a trigger. It's like dismantling a bomb, it's like in my Art of Contemplation book, where I describe this very simply. By the way, this little book, I talk about the amygdala. Amygdala is a small almond-shaped receptacle in the brain that has it's like the detonator that fires these triggers. And so you have to kind of dismantle the detonator over a period of time, and it is possible to do that. And then you no longer are triggered in the same way at all, where you begin to kind of crest that wave that I talked about earlier. So you might even witness the trigger, but then you're no longer triggered by the trigger. You're just going, oh, wow, look at that come up. It comes up and it goes down. You're like, wow, I don't have to act on it anymore. And even that tension around the chest begins to kind of melt. And then the beauty of that fourth line, begins to soften and open. And that, the beauty of that love that you had as a child, that you felt, that was just open and free before you felt that wound, starts to return, and the memory of that becomes stronger and deprograms the shadow. Okay, we've just covered some, I only done 2 or 3 questions, but man, they are like key questions. So I'm flipping around randomly. I'll come down the other end now. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, Jennifer asked a question, another profound question about framing the notion of evil and the idea that suffering holds a gift inside it. And this is a big stretch, I know, for all of us, because we see this in the world, and one cannot make light of evil, and one cannot make light of innocence, suffering, or injustice, or any of that. I mean, you can, but you'd be a fool to. So how do we frame that? Again, it's the whole notion of like, if we look at, we have to expand. Like when you start to go into the gene keys and you start to really contemplate the siddhis, these highest states of consciousness, then it starts to really expand your capacity to kind of encompass eternal ideas, and also, wider feelings of love and compassion. So we begin to kind of open up our mind, and we begin to open up our heart, and then we begin to remember more of how this whole universe thing works. And one of the things that does is expands our kind of memory, so that we come to this realization that we're eternal beings. And if you like, there's a lot of great people that have had these near-death experiences, right? And a person that's had a big near-death experience has literally, I'm sure there's some of you here, there's always one or two, has literally come back with this memory of like, wow, I'm an eternal being. And that memory is so powerful in us. So when we do these contemplations on the keys, it begins to reawaken those memories, especially as we transform those shadows. Then, we're opening up more and more. We're contracting less and less, and we're opening more and more, expanding our consciousness. And so those wider impulses start to come into us. And as it's all connected to this notion of justice as well, because we begin to realize that there are things at work, forces at work, that are so vast. We are part of a collective being that is discovering itself, and it's discovering itself in all kinds of ways. And it's begun with the notion of suffering. So it had to forget itself first, like this divine consciousness that came into the form and forgotten itself, and in doing that, it's had to kind of explore all kinds of avenues, and evil is one of those avenues, what we call evil. So there are many twists and turns in the kind of karmic cycles of the world and of individuals as we're learning. And there's this notion that this notion of both, we're one consciousness, a unity, a unified field, but also within that we are points of light, points of eternal light, if you like, the children of God. These little crystalline souls that have their own individuality beyond, within the eternal game. So we're these incarnating, cycling souls that can exist in different dimensions in different ways. And it's a massive kind of field to entertain when you begin to think like that. You're, wow, I'm both merged, and yet I'm also individualized, and my being it never ends. And if you start with that premise, then the whole notion of evil takes a different meaning completely. It takes on a completely different meaning. It becomes something to learn from. It becomes a place of intense learning. The learning curve is sharp. And sometimes when you're ready for it, or even when the world is ready for it, the learning curve goes really steep, like this, for many of us, as something very intense happens, or one or a few people just come in and they represent as a symbol some terrible kind of, they play out some terrible role, but it's a collective symbol, that has come forth so that we can all accelerate in our consciousness in some way. And that doesn't make in fact, it doesn't make it any less. In fact, it makes our suffering of greater value. It makes it more precious in a way, because we're learning from it. We're growing through it, because we have to move through forgiveness, and we have to move through, deeper and deeper layers of understanding and compassion. And so, yeah, hopefully maybe that gives you a different way of looking at the nature of evil. I mean, I could go deeper myself, but I think by expanding the parameters, you get to see it from a different view. Thanks for the deep question. So, anything lighter? Hi, Tamayo. Nice to see you there. That'd be funny if you asked a question. Tamayo and I are normally, Tamayo is a wonderful, wonderful woman who normally often sits with me and Elijah, and we answer questions on the retreats together. So she has an incredible wisdom, and is going to be taking over from me at some point, I'm sure, as we swap over. So someone's contemplating the Pearl sequence, the brand. I'm not sure about my brand name. Richard, do you have advice for that situation? My brand name. What do you mean by brand name? I'll talk about the brand for a moment. In the Pearl sequence, which I'll be teaching as a big online retreat later in the year, November, I think. This is like, there are 3 layers to the Golden Path journey. So if you're new to Gene Keys, then you've got a wonderful journey ahead of you, and you may be somewhere in the middle of this journey as well, or you may have even kind of gone through all those sequences, in which case you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But we've never finished them, because they're kind of imprinted in us, and we're always expanding and learning and growing through them. But they are 3 sequences, and the first one is about purpose, and the second one is about partnerships, and the third one's about prosperity. And they're all kind of contained inside each other, like those kind of Russian dolls that you take off, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And the sequence unravels naturally through purpose, then through relationships and love and opening the heart in the Venus sequence, and then finally through the Pearl sequence, which is one about prosperity. And although you can start anywhere in the system because it's holographic, it's hologenetic, so you can start anywhere actually, it makes sense to start at the beginning, the natural beginning, which is the activation sequence, which, if Anton, you're here, you can, I think you maybe even dropped in you can drop in a link so that people can go and find that, or find the funnel page to it. The activation sequence is the first journey through your profile, and it touches on the meaning of your life purpose and your life's work, and fundamental questions at the core of our being. And until you're really grounded in your purpose, it's difficult being in relationships with others, because you don't have this sense of, this is me, this is where I begin, this is where I end, this is where someone else begins, this is where they end. If you don't have that anchor, that core stability in yourself, then you get entangled, you become a victim of the patterns of chemistry in relationships. You become codependent, and you get stuck in those things, and it's always a bit of a mess. And that's something we have to learn through our evolution. We learn to kind of come into that place of, this is me, this is my purpose, this is self-love and self-assurance and self-esteem, these issues of like, this is me, and this is how I love myself, this is how I take care for myself, this is how I get grounded and earthed, and that's the purpose. And once you have that kind of dialed in, then your journey through relationships is way, way easier, because you don't get knocked about so much buffeted by the winds of like someone else's emotional waves, like coming at you, way, you know, you're able to really hold your place. And like, even though you'll get, you know, we're human, so we get pushed over every now and again, you can hold that place and you can really have a clear, transparent, fruitful relationship with just about anyone. Well, from your side, you can. And that's what begins to open up the heart space. And then the natural flowering of that is, as the heart begins to open, the quantum field around us begins to open. You know, the city field, the field that connects us to life, connects us to other dimensions, connects us into the wheeling, you know, synchronicity field of the cosmos, and then good fortune starts to kind of rain on us, because grace, because we're doing shadow work, right? We have the courage, we're doing this work, this inner work, and we're taking responsibility for our own emotions, our own victim patterns. And then because we're doing that, the rewards come, and the rewards are grace. Grace starts to you know, open your heart, and you start to realize that actually your natural state is a lot more cheerful than you realized. You know, because hidden inside us is this, and I don't mean like you go through every day being, you know, hugely smiley, but it means that there's a kind of buoyancy to your nature that maybe you didn't ever, you hadn't kind of found that since you were a child. A kind of, you know, more than hope, you know, a kind of knowing that life is safe, that you can trust. You know, you're in a state of trust. And when that happens, then the pearl sequence begins to unravel in us, begins to unlock. And one of the final kind of crystallizations of that sequence is called the brand. And the brand is actually funny because it's where we begin the journey, it's where you end the journey. So it's a you know, in the first sequence, it's called your life's work. And in the last sequence, you visit the same sphere and the same gene key and the same line, but you look at it from a different level. And this time it's called the brand, and it's your brand. I mean, there's a massive thing about brand now. It seems like everywhere you go, everyone's a brand specialist suddenly. And there's a lot of talk about getting your individual brand and branding yourself. And it's quite funny. And I like the word brand actually, because it's a Celtic word. It's from, you know, it's from my land. And it means a sword. So what's your sword? And it's not the sword that kind of cuts people. It's the sword of truth. You know, this is my truth. My brand is my truth. And how clearly can I express my truth to others, you know, with real clarity, with real refinement. So the pearl helps you refine your brand. It helps you kind of find your specific style of impacting the world and others, because it comes through that self-assurance, it comes through that groundedness in yourself, and this line that runs down the middle of your profile. I sometimes call it the line of individuation. You know, it's all right down the middle of your profile, and the pearl is on there, and the brand is at the top, and the core stability and the purpose is at the bottom. In the middle is the SQ, which is our love, our ability to love. And then just below that is the attractor field. So we're attracting in, you know, things that are fulfilling to us. We're attracting in the things that we need to fulfill our highest destiny, instead of attracting in more trouble, because we're still putting out shadow patterns. You know, we have unprocessed shadow. So we attract those shadows in order that we can process them. This is what people don't realize. You know, you attract difficult things or tough relationships, and you think that's bad. That's actually brilliant. You know, that is actually giving you the opportunity to transform something inside you, so that the next time, you know, you won't have to attract that in again. But you have to work through the pattern itself. You have to have the courage. You have to have the self-awareness. You have to take responsibility for your side of it. And you can't blame the other person. You know, it's like your attractor field has brought those things to you, those situations, those things, and there's grace in it. You know, and I call this the law of unseen grace. You know, because it's unseen in the beginning. You're like, oh God, why is this happening to me again? And it's unseen until you transform it, until you go through it, until you face it fully. Allow, accept, embrace. Until you've gone all the way through to embrace, it won't leave you. It will return in another form. If you only get to a little bit through and then you kind of get distracted and go out over here, it never, you know, it just returns. So, yeah, a little bit on the brand. I'm almost done an hour. Can you believe it? So yeah, shadow work. Anything else? I'm at the bottom. So if anyone wants to kind of throw in something, please do. I've been meandering. Do you say meandering? No, surrendering. Hi in Warsaw, in Poland. Oh, the panther. The panther. Isn't that a wonderful poem? Anton, I've got another link for you. The ecstatics. If those of you have, I don't know how many of you have discovered my program, the ecstatics. It's a really nice program. It's 7 recordings. They're free, and they're on like amazing people. The Panther is a poem I read from it's the ecstatic I did on Rilke, the Rainer Maria Rilke, Austrian poet. And I explore these people's lives. Very different. It's not kind of Gene Keys. There's no Gene Keys stuff in it. It's just my love of exploring heart space through amazing people. And thank you, Elijah. I think, sorry, Anton, I think you put it in there, the ecstatics. And you can go and click on that and link and you'll see. And anyway, the one on Rilke, there's a beautiful poem and it's called The Panther. It's an incredible poem. Unfortunately, I don't speak German and the original is in German, and I'm told that the original is so beautiful. It's a short poem, very short. It's about a caged panther. And he captures this haunting image of the panther pacing backwards and forwards, and he's looking through the bars, and it's like through the bars, he's, you know, his eyes are kind of deadened because the wild spirit of the panther has gone. But there's this kind of, you know, every now and again, there's the curtain of the pupil lifts, and there's a sort of moment where suddenly maybe there was a glint of his wildness, and then suddenly it's gone, and there's nothing through the bars, just, you know, and no world left for him. And it's absolutely devastating poem. And yeah, I've been just talking with a lovely woman about it, a German, she's not German, she's Russian, about that poem. And we were saying, you know, I was saying like that poem is us, you know, in so many ways. It's the victim, you know, it's the part of us that it's the cage is the rib cage, and the heart is locked in there. And until we begin to kind of awaken this heart space in us, you know, life is, you know, just not worth living. It's like this is the journey. And I don't care how kind of, you know, clever you are, if you're not doing that heart work, you know, then you're missing something so sweet. So yeah, anyway, the ecstatics, good one to listen to. They're about an hour long. You can download them to your phone and have a little run and have a lovely journey. They're wonderful. What else? Oh Lordy, Flavia, you've asked the kind of one of those other Venus questions. I need Tamayo here. Is it possible to transcend codependency along with a partner without breaking the relationship? Of course. You know, every shadow state in relationships is a codependent state. You know, so you can look at any, you know, take a shadow, pick a shadow in your profile, and then look at another shadow. You know, you don't have to know someone else's shadow. Just take another shadow that you don't have in your profile and put them together. You know, take two random ones. I mean, put in the chat box, someone put in a shadow. Come on, let's do this game. Any shadow, doesn't matter which one. Write a gene key, a random gene key. Okay, well, this is a bit slow for me. We'll take 21. Okay, inertia. Here we go. Thanks. Inertia. Great. Inertia and greed. Let's take inertia and greed. Right. So the one for greed, it's just okay. Calm down. All right. Stop it. We're taking the first two because Victoria and M. Siach. We're going to do you guys. So imagine one person's got inertia, the other's got greed, and those two shadows are interacting with each other. Greed is, I want more. I want more. I want more of you. You know, I don't know why. I just want, you know, I need more. And inertia is, I can't give you more. I don't have enough of myself. I can't even move, in fact. You know, and you can see those two shadows. You can see that pattern, that codependence, and how that might play out. And how it might sometimes even cross over so that one person's shadow in a relationship, one person's shadow kind of flicks over to someone else, and we get caught in these feedback loops, you know, where the shadows are like dissonance patterns, they're like interference patterns because they're not harmonizing with each other. And so they kind of throw up all these staccato patterns. And it's very uncomfortable when two shadows interact. So that's why when one person, you know, I always say it takes one person to transform a relationship, because if one person is doing their inner work, and I have to qualify that, okay, I will go on hopefully to qualify that. If one person's doing the work and they are anchored in their core stability, then let's say that person in inertia is like owning their inertia, and they're working with it, and they realize that it's actually a kind of their own issue that they, and even though the greed kind of makes it seem worse, they're able to like hold their own and work into it and realize that that is a journey for them. You know, so if you have that particular shadow, every shadow is a journey. You got to find where is the root of this, and how am I going to kind of move through it into transformation? How am I going to tackle it? How am I going to kind of understand it? How am I going to empathize with it? I may need support. I may need specialized help. I may need, you know, body work. I may need a lot of things on my journey to understand what, you know, and embrace it and accept it and then move through it, because everyone has a gift for us, right? You know, because inside that inertia is hiding the gift of determination, you know, and inside that is hidden the city of invincibility, you know. So there's great love hidden behind that inertia, but there's some trauma that's kind of sitting on top of that love, and you got to kind of contact that trauma in some way, reawaken it, feel it, move through it, and then, you know, the inertia begins to shift and the love that's there comes out. Right. So if one person is doing that work inside themselves, then they don't need to be completely pushed off by the other person all the time, you know, and that enables the other person, you know, it breaks the codependent link. Right. So the other person then is kind of left quivering with their own issue. And that, because codependence is like, it feeds off, you know, one shadow feeds off codependence, it feeds off another shadow. So if it's like it's being starved. So either there's only two possibilities. Either that person starts to awaken in their journey, or they cannot stomach it and they leave. They have to leave. But the one that's doing the inner work stays put. Say, this is me. I'm here. I'm loving myself. I'm doing my work. I'm here for you. But this is my boundary around my inertia and my work. It's like this, all of that, but I'm not leaving. Then then that other shadow has to something has to change in it, or it cannot stay there. So many times it starts to transform itself. This is why there's magic in doing the Venus work. I mean, it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always work that way. And sometimes the relationship can't carry on because the other person is not ready. I wouldn't say not able, but is not ready to do that work. And so actually there's a great gift in that, because it means the relationship can move apart, and that person, can move off on their journey, and this person who's doing their inner work can see the attractor field will change. So you won't attract that same pattern again the next time. And the other person's not your concern. I mean, you may be concerned about them, but you can't control whether they awaken or not, right? No one can control someone else in that way. So stay rooted in your own process. Be honest, be kind, be transparent, and see where it takes the relationship. And it'll be very clear. It always is clear after a while. But hold your core stability and build it deeper and deeper. How's that sound? Yeah. So someone's mentioned the dream arc now. What's that? My husband thinks this is all hogwash. Husbands do, but that's okay if he thinks it's hogwash. As long as you love him and he can love you, it doesn't matter. As long as there's that, there doesn't have to be, in a relationship, there doesn't have to be intellectual perfect alignment. There doesn't even have to be emotional resonance all the time. There doesn't even have to be sexual resonance. We can be lacking a lot of things, but still, if there's that core love, if there's enough in the relationship to hold it together, if there's a friendship, if there's a sense of humor, that's very important. Those things can be enough to keep people going for a long time. And you never know how someone grows. Probably, he won't change his mind, because especially men get older, we're so, stubborn the way we think. Unless you put them in a room with me, I can't convince, I have a lot of really good arguments for people who are skeptical. But I understand, as I'm saying. And it doesn't matter at one level. Yeah, dream arc, that's fun. That's a thing we're doing with animals. I'm not even going to begin to go down that one. The dream arc is a process I'm doing with Rosie Aronson. I don't know if Rosie's here, but Rosie is an amazing woman, and we're working on we've kind of taken the gene keys into a completely wild direction, where it's engaging the imagination. And so every key has has a creature, has one of three creatures connected to it. It has an underworld creature, which represents the shadow. It has a mammal, which represents the gift, and it has a bird that represents the city. And so I've drawn birds and mammals and underworld creatures from all over the world and connected them into the gene keys. And so it's created this whole pantheon of wonderful animals and creatures and things. And it's a very imaginative, childlike, beautiful, innocent way to move into the keys. So you could go to your hogwash husband and you can say, okay, what's your favorite animal? Have you got a favorite animal? Right? And see what he says. And that's the gene key you need to read him. You know, it's such fun. You know, or you can do it with a bird, or you can, you know, you can read that key. And so anyway, it's a fun way of playing with the keys that is right brain as opposed to left brain, because, you know, the left brain is a, you know, it's the profile stuff, and it's a bit tough for people, you know. So yeah, we're making a card deck. Rosie's done these amazing paintings and artwork, and I've written a book of all the creatures. I've written 192 creatures. It's taken me years. Been doing it quietly in the background. And they're really great. And it's now developing into a whole amazing course where the creatures are kind of taking on a life of their own. And they've got their own sort of inner connections and hierarchies and categories. And you'll love it. Mythic creatures, yeah, there are mythic creatures. Well, we touch on them, but they're not in that particular alphabet. But yeah, they're also they're mentioned, but they're not. I haven't done mythic creatures, although there may be something in the future around mythic creatures, because I love myths. I'm a lover of mythology, so every mythic creature also has its, you know, is like it's like a, you know, a symbol of a whole kind of system of thought. So a dragon, for example, you know, it is a portal to an entire framework of thinking and understanding about life. So yeah, the dream arc is all about creativity, and you know, for those of us who want to have a bit of a breath of fresh air. And our idea is that it's going to get you out, we're going to call it the online course that gets you offline, because it needs to take you out into nature, and it needs to connect you. Someone asked a question earlier on, this might be one of my last ones. How do we get our body to in resonance with the Schumann resonance? And the Schumann resonance is the frequency, the melodic frequency that the earth emanates. That's my poetic way of understanding it. So everything has a melodic frequency, you know, and the earth has a specific resonance. This can be measured. I can't remember the number. Someone will probably know it and put it in the chat box. There's a frequency number of the Schumann resonance, 9 point something. Anyway, how do we get in resonance with it? And what happens when we're out of resonance with it? Obviously, when we're out of resonance with it, our biosystem is under stress. And that's thank you, 7.83. So that's what stress really is. Stress is when we're out of resonance with the earth, with Gaia herself. And so there are lots of ways of coming back into resonance with the earth. You know, breathing is one, like we started, by dropping into the belly, holding the belly, coming down into that center. You know, obviously going out into nature is one of the classic ones. You know, one of the really beautiful things is to go and stare at the color green. And it sounds weird, but green, ideally it's nature. It's the green of the grass, or it's the green of trees, and it's most powerful when the light's on it, but it doesn't have to be. But that green color of the earth, of the grass, is incredibly powerful when we stare at it, when we look at it, when we gaze at it, when we breathe it in for 5 or 10 minutes. It immediately puts our whole body into the Schumann resonance, because that's what the resonance is. The Schumann resonance resonates with that green color. It's blue as well, actually, because our planet is green and blue primarily. So you can do it with the blue of the ocean, or the blue of the sky. I particularly love the green because it's so anchoring. It's the earth color itself. If you want to go into the kind of blue, then you'll go off into this other space that's more kind of celestial. But the green is the very anchoring one, and it brings you down. There's a lovely word, viriditas. I think it's Latin and might be Greek, and it means the the energy of the green of nature. It's the kind of elixir of the green of nature. It's alive, it's vibrant, and there's this whole thing now, forest bathing, which I find hilarious, because I guess I've been forest bathing since I was a boy, and I never had to call it something. It was just life. But now it has to be called something. It's got to be branded, if it hasn't got a brand, it doesn't exist in this modern world. But yeah, go out for, it's wonderful. Go out and lie in the green, or look at the green. Thank you for all those green hearts. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. It brings us right into that resonance. Try it, try it tomorrow, try it today. If you've got 10 spare minutes, just go and stare at a leaf or a tree, and just let it come in through your eyes and see what happens. Maybe after a while your eyes will shut and you'll go on feeling the green around you, and it'll saturate you. And you'll feel your breath deepen. You'll feel yourself drop down into the belly. And you'll feel this resonance. It's great, by the way, if you have sleep issues, to kind of, obviously it's hard because you can't look at the green at night, but you can imagine it, and you can, you can kind of, be with a tree, or you can be with the earth or a field, and just kind of use your imagination to drop you down into it. But if you've done it in the day, then the chances are that it will stay with you, that resonance. It needs a bit of time. You can't, it's not like a quick thing. It's not a quick fix. It's like, you've got to be out there for a little while. You've got to feel it. You've got to give it as long as it needs to wash over you. So yeah, relaxes the liver. That's true. It does relax the liver. The color of the liver in Chinese is green. And once the liver starts to relax and starts to kind of open, then all the other organs, begin to kind of follow suit. So yes, a nice way to end my little Dharma talk this evening. It's so nice. Amazing questions. And I just looked, and there's 298 of you. How lovely. Yeah, beautiful. Lots of plants in your house. Absolutely. And the words dissipate. Let's mwah. Thank you, beautiful people. I'm so sorry I can't see you. I'd love to be able to see you. So I have to imagine you. I'm imagining you all green. Hey, Ruben, take care with that. That allow, accept, embrace process. You got this book? This is the one you need, this little book. And my online course, that all of you guys, if you haven't done it, you need to be doing it. It's $35. It's the most ridiculous, price. It's on the homepage of my website, Art of Contemplation. Begin that little course. It's beautiful. It's got, it's me in there taking you through the book. You can have it as an audio download. You can listen to it. There's some little exercises. There's a lot of pauses. There's nice photos, things to contemplate, and help you kind of come into this contemplative space. And please share it with others as well. It's a very, for people who are new, your husband, the kind of, those people who are cynical or think it's hogwash. The book on contemplation, that's easy. There's nothing weird about that. I wrote it for my father, so that he would have something to understand. I don't think he read it, but it's an easy, and it's a book that can resonate with just about anyone. Yes, thank you all. And remember, I'm on Clubhouse on Thursdays. I'm back here next Friday again. Please bring more people, let people know. I'd love to get, more people here. I mean, I love the fact that I have 385 of you, or however many you are, 284 now. And, but let's get more. Let's have 1,000. Why not? And Clubhouse is fun. If you're not already on Clubhouse, if you can get on there, follow our link and you get a free invite. And also there's a Tamayo is going to be on Clubhouse soon, doing all kinds of amazing things. Are you still here, Tamayo? Or have you got bored? It's delightful when you can just enjoy the sound of your own voice. Oh dear. Earth to Tamayo, I think she's gone. She falls asleep easily. Thank you, Tangle. Lovely to see you here. Tamayo, she's here, but and not post something. And not post. She's speaking in some Australian dialect. Thank you, Matt. Could not post. No, Clubhouse is now opening up for Android users, Salome. So you should be able to find your way in there. Oh, it depends where you are in the world, because I think they're rolling it out. But it should be coming your way if it hasn't already. Pleasure. That was a really deep process. Yeah, Alitza, are you on Clubhouse? I think you are already now. I would love for you to do something about parents on Clubhouse, parenting and the gene keys. Yeah, so if you go into Clubhouse, you can, then you can come, you find the Gene Keys Club, and you can join our club, and you can, follow Tenmayo and follow me and follow each other. And yeah, it's kind of fun. It's very different. It has a different kind of intimacy because it's audio. Yeah, Tribe 55. Sounds good. Yeah, so what we've been doing on Clubhouse is we've been, as you can see, I'm in the lingering now. We've been inviting 3 people. We've invited people to come up on the kind of virtual stage, and then we've been randomly selecting 3 people so that we don't have any time pressure. And then those 3 people can share where they're at in their life right now, just raw. And then we look at that through the lens of the gene keys and see, how can we frame what's happening through the lens of whichever part of the gene keys, we feel resonating with. Yeah, it's lovely. Very sweet. And also Dan and Annabelle are doing a beautiful pulse group that they're having on Clubhouse. So they do that on, is it Tuesdays? I think it's Tuesdays. Yeah. So we're finding more and more ways to connect, and I'm glad of that, because, we're starved of connection, so many of us, including myself. Yeah, it's raining here. It's been raining for days. Yeah, I'm going to be here. I'll continue doing this and for a while. Yeah, exactly. That's true, Tomayo. Akasha, that's a good question. Well, since Rodrigo left this plane, Akasha kind of went dormant. And it's a game, by the way, Akasha. It's a game based on the gene keys. And Paul, who is running it, it has a plan to kind of revivify and bring it back to life. And but then he's just had a child, so he's a dad for the first time. So he might need a month or two to kind of get back into the groove and start Akasha up again. We have a Gene Keys app coming out this year. So yeah, that's going to be fun. You'll be able to have the whole website on our phone and our courses and things on the phone. So it's going to make, it's going to make our life more fun around the Gene Keys. Are there new sequences? Maybe. Yeah, Dad's parenting group, that would be good. A Clubhouse channel? Do you mean a Clubhouse club? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Bob. We have a club. We have the Gene Keys Club. Kirsten, where can we find out more on the chart cross names? You mean like the human design cross names? Get a human design book or something. I'm republishing my book on circuitry, my human design circuitry book, which has all the crosses in. That's coming out. I don't know when, but I was just I think Anton has a test proof of it, so we'll, it can't be that far away. Natasha, I ditto you around Tamayo. She is awesome. Anton, you've got to let me have that test proof. Luckily, Anton lives down the road from me, so I can see him. Do you ever sleep? The circuitry book, you don't need it. It's I'm really good at selling my own stuff. I know. It's a human design book I wrote years ago. So if you're into human design, it's a kind of classic text for human design. But if you're not into human design, you don't need it. First book you ever read, was it? Yeah. Hey, Daniel. Nice to see you. Not see you, but, really nice to kind of have you here. Yeah, after 2027, we're going to call the Gene Keys the Keys genes, which reverse everything. Yeah, Gemma, somewhere there's a 65th gene key. It was done by, I can't remember his name. It was done by a puppet. What was his name? It's what was it? The gift of, damn. Does anyone remember? Shenanigans. That's it. The Gift of Shenanigans. It's on, I think it's on is it on our YouTube? It's quite funny. Puppet G. Yeah. Yeah, the Gift of Shenanigans. He was such a rascal because he kind of copied my room, so it looks like that he was in my room with the window behind me. It's really funny. The shadow was hope, was it? Shenanigans, great word. Still 200 of you here. Have you got anything better to do? Bye, Robin. Yes, the city of lingering. Well, it's 9:30 for me, and can linger for a little bit longer. Hey, Sarani. "108 sacred numbers." Love numbers. Numbers are amazing, aren't they? You know, when you really pull them apart, you get to see those patterns hidden in them. Has reincarnation stopped for humans? Yes, we've put a pause on reincarnation at the moment. None of you can return. You can just stay here in the lingering afterlife. That's the problem with the lingering. You know, we get so good at it, we actually just kind of don't get anywhere at all. The snake got entangled in a wire. Really nice. There's several snakes in the gene keys in the dream arc. The 53, and then the 54 is the cobra. The 53, I think, is the serpent. Yeah. Black Panther. Yeah, Black Panther. The Black Panther is in the keys. It's the 61, I think. The mammal of the 61. Inspiration. I can read it to you if you like. Shall we read it to you? Why not? A little sneak preview of the dream arc. I don't think Rosie's here, is she? Are you here, Rosie? Give me a moment to find it. Here we are, Black Panther. I am Black Panther. If you've drawn me into your life right now, then you have a profound inner journey to make. You need to make a decision, and you should make it now intuitively. Ooh. Are you ready for an initiation that will quicken your spiritual evolution? If the answer is yes, then you'll have to clear some space in your life for it to occur. Initiations are not to be entered into lightly. You'll need to clear some time in your calendar. Ideally, you'll need at least a week. So this is a very specific one. It doesn't matter when you can manage this. You'll need to be somewhere where you can be alone, but also have support at hand in case you need it. I am Black Panther. I realize that 1 week may be a big ask for you modern humans, but that's what it'll take. To walk with me is no light matter. If you cannot manage this commitment now in your life, that's fine. Simply choose another ally to work with. I like that. If you're ready to work with Black Panther, you need to push out all the things from the outer world for 1 week. Once you've made the decision and the commitment, I will begin to guide you with my gift of inspiration. And it goes on, working with your intuition. I am a night hunter. Your prey will be self-love. The most important lesson for you will be to be patient and gentle with yourself and to focus consistently on your heart and on the theme of self-love. This will bring you through the journey safely. At times you may need to break your own rules and let go. You know, so this is a real journey one. Yeah. Use the art of contemplation. Yeah. Finally, if this journey is not for you at this time, be mature enough to say no. So the Black Panther is really like a powerful spirit ally, a powerful, you know, animal in the dream time. Not, you know, often these creatures we kind of take them lightly, and you know they require commitment. The dream arc's like not a kind of it's light and playful and creative, but it's also intense. It requires commitment, you know, to really kind of move into the kind of body of a creature like that, to work with it. That's no light thing. So yeah, be careful what you ask for. Oh, now you're going to ask what all the animals are. 55. Thank you, yeah, Anton. Anton, you are fast on the buzzer today. The seal. Vinicius. You are like some kind of Roman centurion. Vinicius de Moraes Nascimento. That's an interesting number of Buddhas. I love it. Can't imagine what you do in your spare time. Vinicius. Theravada Buddhism. Nice. Amazing. I love those. Those things are great. I love the numbers. You want to see something cool about a Black Panther? Online, see if you can get to this one, Anton. On Google, it's a Black Panther. It's called Spirit. That's its name, and it's a woman that heals this Black Panther. So if you put in Google Black Panther Spirit healing woman or something, you'd probably get it. And it's an incredible story, true story about this Black Panther that was caged, and this incredible animal communicator came and she worked with it, and in the same day it completely changed its character just from her silently communicating. Thank you, the animal communicator. You've checked her profile, Litsa. Yeah. What did she have in her profile? Anton's got it. You are the man, Anton. Breitenbach. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, really, really powerful. It's a powerful video. Yeah, did you say, Alitza, what was in her profile? Yeah, then they called it Diablo, the panther, and it didn't like its name. And so they changed its name, and it also changed character. Right, you lot, you need to get back to whatever it is you need to get back to. And yeah. There, that's my emoji for you all. Anton, I've got the same symbol. So look, have a great day, evening, afternoon, night. Take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you, and have a lovely weekend. Stare at some green, spend some time with the green energy, with the Schumann resonance. And hopefully see you next week. And yeah, get you lot all over to Clubhouse, and then come, do the 2 nights running. It'd be great. Yeah, lots of love from me, and thank you, Anton, for being an amazing tech host, wizard on the keyboard. And I had no idea you were that fast as a gunslinger. So blessings to you all, and yeah, nothing more to say. Take care, Kirsten. We never had our talk, and I'm really open for doing that this weekend if you find us some time.